Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all. We have gathered here this morning to celebrate the Navati of Dr. K M George, who has spent nearly 3 decades overseas as an educationist and a missionary. Dr. K M George is an educationist who worked in India, Malaysia, and Papua New Guinea for over 3 decades. Prior to his overseas service, he worked as a secretary of the Baikula branch of YMCA Bombay and the youth secretary for Church of India, Pakistan, Burma, and Ceylon. He has authored books such as The Historical Development of Education in a Development State, Sabah, Malaysia 1891 to 1991, Church of South India, Negotiations Toward Union 1919 to 1947, Life in Union 1947 to 1997, Development of Christianity Through the Centuries, Tradition and Discovery, Christianity in India Through the Centuries. He has also published a number of biographies of outstanding Christian leaders. Presently, he lives in his paternal home in Punnaveli, Kerala. Dr. George, you have just published a book, Amazing Grace, Story of Your Life's Journey. I am sure you have plenty of pleasant memories of your life's journey. Would you like to say a few words about your family and early years of your life?
I was born on March 6, 1926, as the fifth son and ninth child of K. M. Mathai, Mathunisar and Mrs. Sarama Mathai in a village called Punnaveli, about 10 kilometers from Mellapalli. It was a time when wild elephants used to trample down the produce, and tigers and cheetahs used to seize cattle. It was covered with thick and almost impenetrable jungles, and pedestrians had to use the wild elephant track.
Where did you have your education?
I had my Malayalam primary school education in the CMS Lower Primary School, Punnaveli. There was a newly started English middle school of which my father was the first teacher and headmaster. It was the only school, English school, within a radius of 8 kilometers. Then I had my high school education and also intermediate education at CMS College, Kottayam. For my degree course, I went to Madras Christian College, Tambaram. Then I did my postgraduate studies in Wilson College, Bombay, Teachers Diploma from St. Xavier's College, and a Bachelor of Education degree from Western Training College, Madras.
I understand you went to Bombay seeking employment. Tell us something about your employment.
Yes, I went to Bombay seeking employment, as Bombay then was a much sought-after place for employment. I obtained a job in an exclusive residential school in Mount Abu called the Lawrence School as a mathematics teacher. There I worked for 2 years.
You said you worked for 2 years in Mount Abu. What happened then?
The government of India decided to close the established school and decided to use it as a National Government Police Training College. I returned to Bombay and worked in the Bombay YMCA branch secretary at Baikula for 3 years. Life in Bombay was a good experience in developing my talents. I was the chairman of the Bombay City Christian Youth Council for 3 years, which provided plenty of opportunity for getting myself within the various social setup.
Am I right in saying that you went for some special youth leadership training program in Australia? Tell us something about it.
In 1956, the Federal Committee of the CMS Australia offered a scholarship for a young man from Church of India, Pakistan, Burma and Ceylon to go to Sydney for a year's special training in youth work. There were 16 CRPB dioceses in these countries, and each diocese was asked to nominate a possible candidate for the scholarship. The Bishop of Bombay recommended my name, representing the Bombay Diocese, and the Metropolitan then selected me for the training program.
What did you do in Australia?
In February 1957, I went to Sydney for the program. I stayed in Moore Theological College and attended some theological training. I had a special weekly program to study under the renowned theologian Archdeacon T.C. Hammond as a part of my study for my doctoral dissertation. I was also a visiting lecturer at the Deaconess Training College for possible missionary candidates assigned to work in different mission fields in Africa and Asia. During weekends, I visited different parishes in and around Sydney. I also visited other capital cities in connection with youth activities. After a year, I returned to India.
What did you do on your return?
The Metropolitan appointed me as the first youth secretary of the CIPBC to organize youth work on the parish, diocesan and synod level, which I carried for 3 years. This enabled me to visit almost all dioceses and countries and organize programs in that connection, during which I worked as a teacher at the Bishop Cotton School, Nagpur.
Can you tell us something about your overseas assignments?
Strange are the ways of God. With my experience at the YMCA, I had a new outlook on the Christian mission strategy. The usual practice of missionary societies was to send missionaries from one country to another, or vice versa. I felt a new strategy was also to be adopted, by which a country that would like to send a missionary to another country may select a person from a second country and send him or her to a third country. And I termed it as triangular partnership. Bishop of Armadale, Australia, visited Nagpur after the WCC conference in New Delhi, when I shared my views on mission strategy with him. On his return to Australia, he shared this idea with the Federal Committee of the CMS Australia. They were pleased with the new proposal and they invited me and my family to Tawau, North Borneo, Sabah. I accepted their invitation.
Please tell us something about your work in Sabah.
North Borneo, as it was then called, became Sabah in 1963. In March 1917, the Society for the Propagation of Gospel has started a school on the present site of St. Patrick's Church. It is a primary mixed school in Chinese medium. In 1957, the Australian mission took over the work, and then Grace and I were invited to go to Tawau in 1963. Myself as vice principal and Grace as mathematics and science teacher. At the end of 1963, the then principal had to go for furlough when I became the acting principal. During that time, the mission was able to obtain 15 acres of land at a place 5 kilometers from the town to start and develop a senior secondary school. The management of the school decided to leave the then school to develop the primary school and move to the new site. The new site was a 15-acre land owned by the Commonwealth Development Corporation, which was a rubber garden. Tremendous work had to be done before construction of necessary buildings. Trees had to be felled, undergrowth cleared, ground leveled, and necessary funds had to be raised. Within a year of work, the principal, James Parr, had to go back to Australia for serious medical illness. The bishop immediately came from Kota Kinabalu and requested me to take over the responsibility of developing the school from scratch. Initially, I resisted, stating that we were intending to return to India after a 3-year program. But with the persuasion from the bishop, I had to succumb to his request. We continued to work in Sabah for another 15 years before we left Sabah.
What was your feeling or reaction when you accepted the responsibility of principal?
Certainly, I had a very mixed feeling. One, an enormous responsibility of developing a school from scratch, raising money from where I don't know. Two, the privilege of starting a new school in a new site and setting up the proper tone of the school, etc. As Rome was not built in a day, the school had to be built in stages. The first phase of construction was to build 8 classrooms, an office, a library, and 2 staff quarters. With the completion of the first stage, the secondary school was moved to the new site on June 2nd, 1966. Second stage of development was building science lab, staff quarters, nursery playgrounds, including a 400-meter track of sports field.
It seems that you are a man of great dreams. What was your dream of St. Patrick's School?
My dream of the school was that it should have a proper tone. The 3 important components of a school are 1. Academic excellence, 2. Strict discipline, and 3. Congenial and beautiful surroundings.
After working for 20 years in Sabah, how did you go to Papua New Guinea to work there?
I was invited by the Archbishop of Papua New Guinea to work in the provincial high school for girls. It was in Dogura with 400 girl students in a very small town.
Can you tell us something about Papua New Guinea?
Many people think that Papua New Guinea is in Africa. It is not. It's the north of Australia in the Pacific region. It is a Commonwealth country like India. It consists of a large number of small islands and dozens of tribal communities who fight against each other. We worked in a place which was a special fighting place between the highland and lowland people. You will be surprised to hear that our house was built on such a place and our staff quarter was on such a site where 32 skulls were dug out. We worked there for 2 years in a girls' school, and then we worked for 5 years in a national high school.
When did you complete your overseas assignments and return to your homeland?
I returned to India in 1989.
What were your plans for your retirement period?
We had high hopes of doing a lot of work for the community, but our dreams were shattered at the death of my dear wife, Grace, due to cancer in 1991.
Sorry to hear that. How did you manage all these 25 years?
From that time till the middle of last year, for the last 25 years, I was with my elder sister Emma, 8 years older to me. She stayed with me. She was a great supporter for me, and she guided me as I was her youngest brother.
Can you explain how you managed such a full life living alone all these years?
When I retired, I determined not just to retire and live a secluded life, but retire and rebuild what I missed in the so-called active life. I became a student of history and decided to write articles to Christian magazines, participating in organizing seminars and writing various church history books.
How many books have you written?
3 in Malaysia before coming to India and 16 after returning to India.
Have you any future plans? Can you tell us something about them?
Considering my age, am I right in disclosing it? However, I hope to publish Centenary History of St. Patrick's School and Church in June 2017 in Malaysia. And another book, a Bailey Foundation project of the 200 years of missionary work of Basel, CMS and LMS missions from Calicut to Kanyakumari. This is a project undertaken by a group of people from the various dioceses in the region.
Now that you celebrate your Navati, would you like to say a few words to the present younger generation?
It is not easy to give advice to younger generation as they are living in a very advanced scientific society. There's a lot of generation gap, at least 3 between myself and the present day young people. As I have reached my 90, I rely mainly on the amazing grace that God our Father has bestowed on me. If I start counting God's blessing one by one, saving at least one a day, it would come to nearly 33,000. remembering it as merely a free gift. Only I have to say thank you, Lord. In the recent visit I had in Malaysia, a number of my former students who hold very key positions in the country asked me the same question. Dr. George, what is the secret of your success? My common answer was just this: there is no shortcut, only hard work and self-discipline.